Where does a person go when they die? A few years ago, a very good friend passed. A week after my last heartfelt conversation with him. On that drive, he begged me to live my best life. The days that followed, he shared a painting of what seemed like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, described in Revelation 6:1-8. Only that there were 5 horses whose riders wore white robes. 4 of the horses were black, and 1 was pale. I remember feeling an uncomfortable, eerie stillness come over me as I stared at the image. This bizarre message embedded, this subtle nudge to think of an end, may have been his way of announcing a quiet but tragic exit. For a while, we said nothing to each other, knowing we would meet for our usual Friday hangout. Only that fateful Friday drive was to be his last on this side and in control of a wheel, sound in wind and limb. He was full of life and a laughter that filled his chest and broke out like a gushing stream. A visionary, empathetic to his core and eager to glean wisdom. Our own adaptation of the Agora was where we traded words of illumination. He had great hopes for his young daughter, the wife of his youth and his friends. We 4 were bound by a quest I eventually acquiesced. We were family beyond blood, and for the first time in a long time, I belonged. He died in his home of a cardiac arrest, neglected by a breath that was to serve him life, leaving us with more questions than answers. The drive to share in the grief of the family was a silent one, each one of us possibly reminiscing over last memories. The other day, a slender man with tales of good stature, who had lost touch with his sanity, seeming like he could benefit greatly from a warm bath, switching between extreme expressions like laughter and anger, suddenly burst out crying. He wailed like a baby or a man dying of agony, and I wondered, what worries his soul? It is said that sometimes a person seeks permission from loved ones before leaning into the cold arms of seeming oblivion. Breathe in and hold till his loved ones leave before he exhales his last. This outward display of emotion, this attention-grabbing wail, may have been his way of announcing a grand exit. Since there was none to call family, we, immediate pedestrians and bypassers, were fit seat fillers. He too died in the streets of neglect, days later, love deficient, sick in his soul, bereft of peace. We who had the responsibility of trading final moment memories of him thrust upon us, felt a pull in our chest upon seeing his remains, and over 19 pedestrians, cast as family, grabbed our chests simultaneously as though choreographing a war cry. Indeed, grief is no respecter of persons and not a relic for a privileged few. So, I ponder, where does a person go when they die? What lies beyond daylight? When the body falls into an endless sleep, does it remain asleep or wake up to another life? Is there pitch black darkness of freshly manicured lawns or just oblivion in rife? When a person gives up the ghost, where does it go? When all they once loved wail and mourn, or strangers mock in the capacity of professional mourners, does the ghost feel a sting in their eyes? Is there an invisible cloak, or do clothes have spirits too? Where does a person go when they die? Does it matter how they took their last breath, or how they chose to let go of their mortal remains, what remains of their earthly voyage, and the many main things they left unfinished? Do those who die in strange lands find themselves at home at last, amongst loved ones? Do the seeming upright, who stir up a scandal in their absence, wake to a live stream from the land of the living. When the mortal remains are bathed and clothed in preparation for the transitional journey, we are in essence saying by this act that we want to send them home with the right drip. I imagine how we wake, get slayed, go about our day, returning to shower and rest for the next day. Do they take another bath at the beginning of the next chapter after they cross over? Who welcomes them after this long journey? And if they do rest, in whose peace? All of life is fleeting, saddled with uncertainties. The only certain thing is death, and it definitely takes the ending of someone's life to remind us that life is fairly short, and only those who lived mindful of eternity can exit with a hope that death is not final, that though this soul's mold may cease to function, our souls will find rest in the presence of He who has overcome death. For if only for this life we have hope in Christ, we are of all people most to be pitied.